If you're thinking of moving to Maryland, but you're looking for a place with a slower pace of life, a small town that still has things to do, but is close to everything you need, well, you're in luck because in this video, I'm going to cover 7 underrated towns in central Maryland that you should consider moving to. So let's just dive right into them. Hey everyone, my name is Eddie and I'm a realtor here in Maryland. And if this is your first time visiting the channel, thank you for being here. I've made it my mission to help people just like you determine the best places to move in Maryland. And I put out videos every single week giving you all the information you could need to determine where you should move to. So if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any of my upcoming videos. All right, so let's get started with the first underrated town, and that is the town of Mount Airy, Maryland. Located in between Frederick and Baltimore, it sits at the intersection of 4 counties: Frederick, Carroll, Montgomery, and Howard counties. It's just over 1 hour from DC and about 40 minutes to downtown Baltimore. And at the time of this video, the population is just under 10,000 residents. And while Mount Airy was originally a railroad town, it's grown to be a pretty massive small town with a lot of things to do. You have the historic downtown, you have the suburbs just outside of it, and rural properties on the outskirts. So why is it so underrated? Well, I'd say the biggest reason why Mount Airy is underrated is that it's kind of a pass-by town. It's right off of I-70, meaning that you really don't think about it when you're on your way from Baltimore to Frederick, unless you need to get off for gas, and then you'd realize, it's a huge town that you have plenty to do in, but without that, you wouldn't really think of Mount Airy. And I think the other reason that it's underrated is that because it's split into 4 counties, the ratings are a little skewed. So you have different school ratings on different parts of the city itself. So 4 different areas, 4 different school ratings. And I don't think the rating sites know what to do with that. So it doesn't really make a lot of top lists when it really should. And I also think it's underrated because of how much they have to offer. It has its own town government. They have their own festivals, their own parades, and things to do in Mount Airy itself. So it has everything you need without having to go far outside of the town. I mean, other than going to doctor's appointments and some stores that you actually need, like maybe a Costco or a Target, you're going to have a lot right in town. You have your Walmart, you have your local restaurants, your chain restaurants. So you have everything right there in town. And another great thing about living in Mount Airy is there's plenty of parks in the town and right outside of the town itself. You have Watkins Park, which is a huge community park right in Mount Airy. Then you have Patapsco Valley State Park, which runs right along the north edge of town. And the real estate market here is fairly affordable for what you get. At the time of this video, the median price point is right at $550,000. And the reason it's higher than the Maryland median, which is around $408,000, is because you're getting more for your money out here. There are larger homes here on larger pieces of land. So that's why the median price point is higher, but price per square foot is relatively affordable compared to places in Howard County and Montgomery County. And the second underrated small town we have to talk about is Sykesville, Maryland. It's located on the southern edge of Carroll County, just north of I-70, and it's about an hour from DC and only 30 minutes to Baltimore. It has a population of just over 4,400 residents, and it at one point was rated as one of America's coolest small towns. And although it was rated one of America's coolest small towns, it still doesn't make a lot of the top lists, and that's because there are certain towns and suburbs in Maryland that just dominate the top 10 lists and the top 20 lists, when Sykesville really should deserve a spot on those. And that's because Sykesville's downtown is really one of the best in Maryland. It has a charming mix of historic buildings and unique boutique shops, coffee shops and restaurants, and they hold First Fridays in town, plenty of events and things to do. And it's one of our favorite places to go, just to go get breakfast on a nice weekend. And I think that it's so overlooked, and that's why I think it's an underrated town. And another cool thing about Sykesville is the outdoor activities near here. And similar to Mount Airy, there's a lot to do outside, except I would say there's a lot more to do in the Sykesville area outside. You have Liberty Reservoir right nearby where you can go fishing or kayaking or paddleboarding, and you still have Patapsco Valley State Park, except in this section nearby, there's a lot more trails available for mountain biking and hiking, so just a lot more to do in this specific area. And at the time of this video, the median price point for Sykesville is just $525,000. And I say just, and that's because of the location. I mean, you are so close to Baltimore and Fort Meade and even close to Annapolis. So to have a price point like that, just right off of these major commuter routes, is really ideal. And a lot of that has to do with there's a lot of old school ranchers in town where you can get a really decent price for a 3-bed, 1-bath or a 3-bed, 2-bath. But there's also larger properties like you find in Mount Airy that are on land, plenty of suburban properties here. So a lot of options. And I would say you really do get a lot for your money here in Sykesville as well. Now, moving on to the third underrated small town on the list, that is New Market, Maryland. And New Market sits right on I-70 just to the east of Frederick, similar to Mount Airy, and it's about an hour from DC and 45 minutes or so from Baltimore. It has a population of just under 15,000 residents at the time of this video, and at one point it was known as the antiques capital of Maryland. So what makes Newmarket underrated? Well, I'd say it's underrated for a lot of the same reasons Mount Airy is. It's off of a major highway, so if you're going from Baltimore to Frederick, you're really not going to get off in Newmarket. And if you do, you're going to go to the more commercial retail section of Newmarket and not the historic downtown. So it's so easy to pass right on by the historic district and not see how cool it is. But also, because of that historic, cool downtown, it has so much to offer. There's local restaurants. There's one of the best coffee shops in all of Frederick County right downtown. But what really makes Newmarket unique is the Lake Linganore community. They hold nearly 9,000 of the almost 15,000 residents here. So that's a lot of the population. And this is a resort style community on a massive freshwater lake where you have sand beaches, you have pools in the community, you have walking trails. There's so much to do here. And it's so underrated. But when people figure out that this town is here and that this community is here, they add it to the top of their list pretty much immediately. And if you're looking for a really cool neighborhood where you can drive a golf cart to the beach and drive a golf cart to pick up your kids and you feel like you're on vacation every weekend, this is probably the perfect spot for you because there's really no other places where you can have waterfront communities in central Maryland. You could go to Deep Creek Lake way out in western Maryland or go to the eastern shore by Annapolis and pay significantly more money to live on the water on the Chesapeake Bay. But other than that, there is nothing else in the area quite like this. And the median price point for homes in Newmarket at the time of this video is right around $600,000. But the good news here is there's a variety of home options in Newmarket. You have condos, townhouses, and single family homes. You have homes inside of the Lake Linganore Community HOA, homes outside of it, the historic homes. So plenty of options here if you're considering making a move. All right, and moving on to number 4 on this list of underrated small towns, that is Damascus, Maryland. And Damascus is located on pretty much the northern edge of Montgomery County. Other than the very small sliver that's in Mount Airy, it is the most northern town in Montgomery County. It's about 50 minutes or so from DC and about 40 minutes from Baltimore. It has a population of about 16,000 residents, and it's most known for its equestrian estates. And what makes Damascus so underrated is that you really feel like you're in the middle of nowhere. They've done a great job at preserving the rural charm just outside of town. And in town, there's plenty of houses, plenty of things to do, even new construction going on in town with condos and townhouses and single family homes. But just on the outskirts of town, it's pretty much the same that it's looked for a very long time. And that's what makes this town underrated. And you really wouldn't be driving through Damascus unless you're crossing through the back roads that would lead you through here. And there's not really many reasons to do that unless you live here. And another thing that makes Damascus underrated is that the high school is right in town and it's walkable to so many of the homes in town. So if you're looking for a place where your kids can walk to school, this is one of those places. And Damascus also has a significant amount of outdoor parks for being such a small town. They also have walking trails that are paved going all through town, going north to south. It's a really cool place to go. A lot of people drive from other places into Damascus just because of how nice their walking trails are. So if you want a place where you have outdoor activities, you have equestrian estates, and a small town with shops and grocery stores and restaurants, Damascus could be a good fit for you. And at the time of this video, the median price point in Damascus is $550,000. And like I said, there are plenty of options here for cheaper condos and townhouses and larger single family homes. So you really have the full spectrum here. All right, and coming in at number 5 on the list of underrated towns is Brookville, Maryland. Now, this is a tiny historic town just 30 minutes to the north of DC. It's really a suburb of DC. It's about 40 minutes from Baltimore. It has a population of just 150 residents on the recent census. Now, I do think there are more residents in areas that maybe are not considered in that census tract, but it's still a very small population. And something unique about the Brookville historic town is that it was once the capital of the United States for one day during the War of 1812 when the British burned DC. But today it's home to beautiful 18th century homes and newer homes that have that same charm because there's a historical society here. So just a really unique place to live. And I'd say what makes it underrated is that not many people talk about it as well. I mean, you're going to maybe pass through this town and not realize it. And the reason for that is they just put a brand new bypass road in around the town. So all the traffic that used to route through historic Brookville no longer goes through town. So there's pretty much no one going through town. It's quiet. It's beautiful. It's an amazing upgrade for people that live there. And I think it just bumped it up on the list to be one of the best small towns in the area. Now, that doesn't come without a cost. Being so close to DC and being in such a beautiful area means that the median price point here is higher at $750,000. All right, and the sixth underrated town on the list is Middletown, Maryland. Located just 15 minutes to the west of downtown Frederick, this small town has a lot to offer. It's still about an hour to DC and just over an hour to downtown Baltimore. It has a population of about 5,000 residents. And the Middletown Valley that it sits in is absolutely beautiful. George Washington himself called it one of the most beautiful places he had ever seen when he visited. And speaking of George Washington, there is a ton of history steeped in this small town. There's both Civil War history and Revolutionary War history. And today, this small town, the downtown itself, has kept a lot of that historic charm. And I would say what makes it a very underrated city is how beautiful it is, for one, but also how close it is to the towns that you would need to drive to. I mean, Frederick is just 15 minutes away, but when you're in Middletown, it feels like you're a world away. You're over the first mountain range of the Appalachian Mountains, that first ridge, and it really just makes you feel so set apart from everywhere else around, but it's still a reasonable drive to DC. It's an hour, right? So without traffic, so not too bad, but I think it's underrated because of that. And also just the views here are something that you can't find really anywhere else. And at the time of this video, the median price point for homes in Middletown is $617,000. And while that seems like a lot for being so far out to the west, that is because the properties are larger. Similar to Mount Airy, you have larger homes on larger pieces of land. So with that comes higher price points, but lower cost per square foot. So if you're looking to get more for your money, Middletown is that place. All right, and the seventh final and underrated small town in central Maryland is Walkersville. Located just 10 minutes to the north of Frederick, it's about an hour and 10 minutes from DC and about an hour and 10 minutes or so from Baltimore as well. And what makes Walkersville so underrated is that it is just 10 minutes from all of the amenities you could need. You have your super Walmart nearby, you have Wegmans grocery store, tons of shops and restaurants, just 10 minutes to the southwest. So there's places in Frederick itself that are outside of 10 minutes of the amenities. I mean, Frederick is a very sprawling city that has corners going off in many different directions. Some places are 20 minutes from the nearest amenities, where Walkersville, a completely separate town, is closer than those suburbs of Frederick. So it's something that makes it underrated and a really great place to move to. And I think what also makes it underrated is the price point. At the time of this video, the median price point in Walkersville is just $450,000. And that's a significant decrease from just going 10 minutes to the southwest. I mean, you could pay $40,000 or $50,000 less for a home in Walkersville than a home in Frederick just for going to a different town. So significant savings just going up that direction. You get outside of city limits as well. And it's a beautiful place. It's kind of like Middletown, not as beautiful in my opinion, but you still have the views of the valley that you're in and the mountains surrounding. So a really underrated town, and definitely a place you should consider if you want to live in the Frederick area. So that's it, 7 underrated small towns in central Maryland. And if you're not sure, even after watching this video, which town is right for you, or you think maybe there's another one out there that is even a better fit, maybe Frederick itself is the best fit for you, that's what I'm here to help you with. And the best way to connect with me is to go in the description below and click on the link to schedule a one-on-one consultation. We'll go over your wants and needs and determine the best plan moving forward to make your move go as smoothly as possible. And as always, if you like this video, make sure to like and subscribe so you stay up to date on all my videos about moving to Maryland.